I paid off my parents' mortgage, then found out they left the house to my golden child brother. It was a Tuesday. Always is when something life-shattering happens, isn't it? You expect chaos to show up on a Friday or some dramatic Sunday thunderstorm, but no. It was a plain Tuesday in June when I found out the house I practically bled for wasn't mine. They say betrayal doesn't knock, but this one did. It wore a polite face and carried a manila envelope. My parents' lawyer, some gray-suited, slippery-smiled guy named Kenneth, stood at my front door with just a few quick documents and a voice like he was trying not to spook a feral cat. I hadn't even sat down when he said the words. The house was officially left to Caleb. I blinked. What? He didn't even look up. Your brother. Your parents signed the transfer deed last year. The will names him as the sole beneficiary of the property. My ears rang. My eyes went to the wall. The wall I painted. The one I patched when Dad tripped and put his elbow through the drywall. The same wall that had a hairline crack I'd caulked 6 winters in a row. I'd been making payments on the mortgage since Dad had his second heart attack. That was 6 years ago. I didn't just help. I took it over. Every month. Auto-deducted from my account. And they knew it. You sure there's no mistake? I asked, voice low. No, sir, Kenneth said. In fact, your father specifically stated he didn't want you burdened with any further responsibility. Burdened. That's what he called it. Like I hadn't shouldered their medical bills. Like I hadn't sat in that ICU waiting room for 2 nights straight when Mom had her stroke. Like I hadn't dropped out of my master's program because they needed me. I didn't react. Not then. Just nodded, thanked him, and closed the door. But something inside me cracked. That night, I walked through every room of the house. The house I grew up in. The house I saved. I ran my fingers across the banister I sanded down after Caleb crashed his bike inside like a lunatic when we were kids. I stared at the dent in the kitchen tile from when I dropped the turkey Thanksgiving of '08. It was all memory. All mine. And yet, none of it was. Caleb. Golden child. Baby brother. The one who could do no wrong. I could already hear Mom's voice in my head. He's just sensitive. He's creative. He's finding himself. Finding himself looked a lot like crashing in my guest room for 6 months straight and draining half my fridge. He had a new dream every year. Filmmaker, tattoo artist, startup founder. Now, apparently, he was a coach for crypto investors. He had never paid a single bill. And now, he owned the house. I sat in the garage, lights off, holding a copy of the deed Kenneth had left behind. My name wasn't on it, not even as a co-owner. Just a line about me being consulted for maintenance issues. They'd planned this. For months. Maybe longer. I pulled out my phone and stared at Caleb's contact. I hadn't heard from him in weeks. Not since the family barbecue where he showed up late, high, and bragging about making 5 figures in 48 hours. I should have seen this coming. But the worst part? It wasn't Caleb. Not really. It was them. My parents. My own mother and father, who told me I was the rock. Who cried when I paid off the last chunk of their debt. Who told everyone at church that I was such a blessing. I was the son who showed up. And still, I wasn't the son they chose. That night, I didn't sleep. I made a decision instead. And it started with a call to a contractor I knew. Hey, remember that quote you gave me for gutting the kitchen? Bump it. Let's go high-end. Demo starts tomorrow? Start tonight. Because if I was going to be kicked out of my own sacrifice, I wasn't leaving empty-handed. Not by. The first swing of the sledgehammer echoed like a starter pistol. I didn't flinch. Just stood in the center of the gutted kitchen, coffee in hand, watching drywall crumble under the force of a stranger's swing. I'd hired the best demo crew I could find. No questions, no judgments, just wrecking bars and hard hats. By midnight, the cabinets were gone. Countertops, obliterated. Even the old backsplash Mom loved was in shards across the floor. There was a certain poetry in it. All those family dinners, birthdays, burned pies, and awkward silences, torn out, tile by tile. I didn't lift a finger. Not because I couldn't, but because I wanted to watch it all go without touching a thing. It was Caleb's house now, right? Let him fix it. The plan was clear. Upgrade everything. Rip out the plumbing, install a new tankless water heater, lay custom flooring, replace the HVAC system, and gut the basement down to the studs. All under my name. Paid in full. Every change I made was legal. Every dollar I spent traceable. Every receipt neatly documented. My parents thought they were clever. Leave the house to the dreamer, the visionary. But vision doesn't patch roofs or rewire old fuse boxes. I'd been doing that for years while Caleb floated from gig to fantasy. He hadn't even moved in, still living downtown on trust fund scraps. He didn't even know the property taxes had doubled last year. I paid them, quietly, like always. And then he showed up. It was 3 weeks into the renovations. I was standing in the garage with Ron, the electrician, talking about breaker panels, when the front door creaked open. Bro." His voice hadn't changed. Still that slippery mix of stoner casual, and I didn't mean to break it. I stepped out from the garage and saw him standing in the entryway, mouth half open. "What the hell did you do?" I shrugged. "Demo. You demolished the kitchen?" "It needed it." He stepped inside like the floor might collapse under him. "You didn't even call me. I didn't realize I needed your permission to improve a place I paid off." He gave a nervous laugh. "Paid off? Dude, it's my house now." I nodded. "Exactly. Which is why I'm leaving it better than I found it." He glanced around, eyes scanning the dust, the debris, the blueprint sketches taped to the walls. "Why?" "You know why." He shifted, hands in pockets. That fake casual stance he always defaulted to when cornered. "They didn't mean it like that," he said. "Dad thought you'd feel relieved." "Relieved?" I stepped closer. "To find out the house I paid for was gifted to someone who hasn't held a real job since sophomore year?" He opened his mouth, then closed it. I could see the wheels turning, but there was no argument strong enough to hide the truth. "You didn't ask for this," I said. "But you didn't turn it down either." Silence. "You don't even know the furnace is cracked, do you?" "What?" "Yeah. Carbon monoxide risk. I've had it vented for now. Add that to your to-do list." His face dropped. I walked past him, back toward the blueprint. "Oh, and Caleb?" He turned, eyes wide. "You might want to keep your Saturdays free. Contractors work weekends." And I left him standing there, in a skeleton of a home he thought he inherited. He didn't know it yet, but every blessing came with a receipt. And I kept every one. The kitchen wasn't the only thing getting gutted. A week after Caleb's little meltdown, I started on the basement. We ripped up every inch of old carpet, tore out the warped paneling from the 70s, and installed new insulation. Mold remediation, high-efficiency sump pump, the works. It was the kind of job you'd only take on if you loved the place, or really wanted to make a point. I chose the second option. The thing about renovations is, they force you to look at the bones of something. Strip away the paint, and you find out what's real. Same goes for families. I found out Mom and Dad had been planning the transfer for over a year. The deed wasn't some last-minute decision. No, I found a printed email in Dad's old desk drawer while I was boxing up paperwork. Dated 14 months ago. "Let's make it official while he's still paying for it," Dad had typed. They'd signed everything during the same week I was in the hospital with pneumonia. I'd almost died. I remember texting Mom from the ER asking if someone could feed my dog. She left me on read. But she called Caleb that night. Told him it was done. So no, this wasn't ignorance. It was design. The day the HVAC install wrapped, I invited a real estate agent over. Not for me. For him. "Get a market estimate," I told her. "Tell me how much this place would fetch with all these upgrades." She walked through every room, scribbling notes, wide-eyed at the finishes. "This doesn't look like a family home," she said. "This looks like a flip." I smiled. "Does it now?" I didn't tell Caleb. Let him keep thinking I was just doing repairs. He'd stopped coming by anyway, probably waiting for the dust to settle. Then, out of nowhere, I got a text. "We need to talk." No punctuation. Classic Caleb. I told him to come by the next day. Noon. He showed up at 2. He looked rough. Bags under his eyes, hoodie 2 sizes too big. I almost didn't recognize him. But then he opened his mouth, and there he was. "You've made your point." I crossed my arms. "Not sure I have yet. This whole construction war? You're trying to sabotage me." "No," I said calmly. "I'm trying to show you what owning something really means." He rolled his eyes. "I never wanted this fight. You didn't stop it either." Silence. Then, softer, "They always said you'd take care of things." I guess I believed it, too. I let that sit. Let it sink in that he'd admitted it. I was the safety net. The fallback. The dependable one. He looked around the basement, now finished and gleaming. "This isn't a home anymore. It's a showpiece." I nodded. "Exactly." He sighed. "So what now?" I handed him a folder. Inside, every invoice, every contract, every permit. A stack as thick as a phone book. "That's what you own now," I said. "Welcome to it." He thumbed through it, face pale. You spent over 80 grand? I met his eyes. All traceable, all necessary, and all under my name. Until the final transfer clears, this is still my liability. He froze. Wait, it hasn't cleared? Nope. He looked at me like I'd just kicked out the last leg of his stool. So you could still stop it? I took a breath. Yeah, I could. I didn't say more. I didn't have to. I left him with the folder and walked out. Let him sit with the weight of it. This wasn't just about the house anymore. It was about everything it stood for. The years, the loyalty, the silence, and how silence, when taken for granted, becomes a loaded weapon. That day, I didn't just hand him a folder. I handed him the truth. Whether he choked on it or swallowed, it was up to him now. Caleb didn't call the next day, or the day after. I thought he might storm back in with some half-baked apology or a screaming match, but instead, silence. The kind that either means surrender or planning. So I waited. And while I waited, I did what I'd always done, handled the mess. The upstairs bathroom was next. Mold behind the vanity, right under the floorboards. I hired specialists, had the whole subfloor replaced, retiled it, rewired the lighting. By the time it was finished, the place looked like a damn spa. Every upgrade was both a gift and a dare. It was a Saturday when the call finally came. Blocked number. I almost didn't answer. Hey, Caleb said, voice low. Mom wants to talk. Of course she did. She didn't call me herself. No, she used Caleb as a go-between like she always had when things got messy. Like I was a tenant, not her son. She's asking if you'll come to dinner. I stared at the drywall mud drying on my hands. Why? She says we need to clear the air. I almost laughed. There is no air left to clear. You all breathed it up when you signed me off like a utilities bill. She didn't know how to tell you. She knew how to cash my checks. Silence. She's not doing great, he said finally. And Dad's. He trailed off. What about Dad? Another pause. They didn't tell you? My jaw clenched. Tell me what? He had a stroke. 3 weeks ago. I sat down. Not out of shock. Out of the sick, sinking realization that this wasn't new information. This was old. 3 weeks. They hadn't told me. I found out 2 days ago, Caleb said. Mom kept it quiet. I stood up, heart pounding. And now that you need help navigating insurance forms and medical bills, suddenly I'm family again. It's not like that. It's exactly like that. I hung up. The rage didn't come right away. It arrived later, slow, cold. The kind that doesn't boil, it calcifies. I could hear her voice in my head. We didn't want to worry you. No. They didn't want to owe me again. They wanted to keep the lie alive. That Caleb was the future. That I was just the help. That night, I drove past the rehab center. Just parked across the street, engine idling. I saw my father through the glass. Thin, paler than I remembered. He was trying to stand. A nurse caught him mid-stumble. And for a moment, I almost got out. Almost. Then I saw her. My mother, sitting just behind him, face blank. Not worried. Not weeping. Just scrolling her phone. That told me everything. I drove home. And I made another call, this time to a property attorney. Can I halt a deed transfer? He asked a few questions. I answered them all. Well, he said, if it's still pending on the registry and your signature hasn't been notarized, then yes. You're still the legal owner until that process finalizes. Perfect, I said. Because maybe, just maybe, it was time they learned what it felt like to be left out of the loop. And this time, there'd be no dinner invite. No phone call. Just locked doors and a name off the deed. Mine. 2 days after I halted the transfer, I got a visit. Not a text. Not a call. A knock. I opened the door, and there she was, my mother, standing like she'd just remembered I existed. Her purse slung over one shoulder, her mouth tight, her eyes scanning the entryway like she was casing the place. Can I come in? I stepped aside. Not out of kindness, just curiosity. She didn't comment on the renovations. Didn't even blink at the polished floors or the missing kitchen wall. She walked in like she still owned the place, sat at the edge of the couch like she was afraid of catching something. I heard you're stalling the transfer, she said. Straight to it. No warm-up. No apology. Postponing, I said, to assess further responsibilities. You know, things like unpaid taxes, insurance liabilities, post-renovation inspections. You're angry. I'm meticulous. She folded her hands in her lap. Your father's not well. You waited 3 weeks to tell me. Her jaw twitched. We thought you'd be too busy. I laughed. Actually laughed. Too busy paying your bills. You don't need to be cruel. Cruel? I walked over to the mantel, picked up the framed photo still sitting there, one of the few I hadn't boxed up yet. It was from 2011. Me, Caleb, Mom, Dad. I was standing just a little to the side, like always. Not quite centered. I turned it around and set it face down. I gave up grad school to keep this house, I said. I skipped promotions, lost relationships. You know how many birthdays I spent on hold with insurance reps? Her voice was thin. We thought we were protecting Caleb. From what? Consequences? He's different. He needs support. So do the people who carry everyone else. We sat in silence. She didn't cry. I didn't shout. That would have made it easier. I came to ask you not to rescind the transfer, she said finally. It would embarrass him. He's telling people the house is his. Then maybe he should start paying for it. She looked at me like I'd spoken a foreign language. You always used to do the right thing, she whispered. I nodded. Maybe it's time someone else tried. She stood. You'll regret this. No, I said. But you might. She didn't slam the door when she left. That would have been too honest. She closed it gently, like she still thought it was hers to close. An hour later, I got a message from Caleb. You're making things worse. I didn't respond. Instead, I took out the last stack of bills and started forwarding them to his email. Insurance, water, electric, HOA fees. His name was on the deed now, after all, or it would have been. Let him learn what ownership really feels like. Let him sweat. When Caleb finally showed up again, he didn't knock. He just let himself in like he still owned the place. I was in the living room going over some electrical receipts when the door creaked and his voice followed it. You're not going to believe what Mom just said to me. I didn't look up. That I've changed. He blinked. Yeah. I nodded. She told me I'd regret this. Said I used to do the right thing. He tossed his phone on the couch and sank into the armchair like the weight of being slightly inconvenienced had crushed him. She's acting like you burned down the house. No, I said. Just lit the truth on fire. He sighed. Look, I know you're pissed. Not pissed. I looked up. Pissed is short term. This is something else. He leaned forward, hands steepled like he was on Shark Tank. So what's your endgame, man? Make me look like an idiot? You did that yourself. His eyes narrowed. You're not being fair. I leaned back, letting the tension stretch like a wire. What's fair, Caleb? Paying for a house for 6 years and finding out it was gifted to someone else? That kind of fair? He ran a hand through his hair. You always think you're the martyr. No, I just stopped pretending this was love. Silence. He shifted, suddenly less certain. Mom says you're going to sell. I didn't answer right away. You are, aren't you? I shrugged. You think owning a house is just a status update. But you've never paid a property tax bill, never dealt with black mold, never fought with city inspectors over permits. I can learn. You didn't want to learn. You wanted to inherit. He stood up. So that's it. You're just cutting us off? I'm cutting myself loose. He grabbed his phone and hovered in the doorway. I was going to fix it up, he said. Eventually. You couldn't fix a microwave. He left without another word. I sat there for a long time. No music. No distractions. Just the quiet hum of the fridge and the steady thud of my own pulse in my ears. He was right about one thing. I was going to sell. But not to some faceless developer or cold cash buyer. Not yet. I called someone else. A woman named Mara. She ran a nonprofit that converted family homes into transitional housing for veterans. She came by the day after my mother's visit, walked through the house, asked quiet questions, took photos. This is more than we usually get, she'd said, running her hand along the new banister. Most people give us the leftovers. Not leftovers, I told her. This house was built on sacrifice. It deserves to mean something. She nodded. Why now? I didn't answer. Because if I'd spoken, I might have cracked. And I wasn't giving them that, either. Not anymore. They didn't take the news well. 3 days after Mara's visit, I sent the group message. Short, clean, direct. The house is being transferred to a veteran housing program. Legal paperwork in progress. Final inspection next week. I'll be vacating after that. No one replied. Not at first. Then Caleb sent a voice note. I didn't listen to it. Just watched the timer tick past 48 seconds and hit delete. The next morning, I opened my front door to find my father's old recliner on the lawn. Not dumped. Placed. I stood there in the cold for a minute, just staring at it. I recognized the faded imprint of his shoulder. The spot where the leather had cracked from years of leaning too hard. An hour later, another message. From Mom this time. That was your father's. You have no right. I didn't answer. I just had it hauled to a donation center. They came by that afternoon. Carried it away like it had never mattered. By the weekend, Caleb showed up in person again. He wasn't angry this time. He was scared. You're really doing this, he said, standing in the driveway like it had just hit him. I didn't stop working. Just kept hauling out old tiles and broken down tools, sorting what I'd take and what I'd leave. You're giving it away? He asked, voice cracking. To strangers? To people who've earned it. It was supposed to stay in the family. No, I said. It was supposed to be mine. But you all made sure that didn't happen. He paced the driveway, arms flailing like he was trying to pull the argument out of thin air. Mom's losing it. She says this is a betrayal. So now she knows what that feels like. He froze. Looked at me like I'd slapped him. You're not the only one who got hurt, he said. No, I said. But I'm the only one who got used. He didn't deny it. Just stood there, helpless, like a kid who'd finally been told the magic trick wasn't real. I wiped my hands on a rag. If you want something to pass on, build it yourself. He nodded, slowly. No fight left in him. Then he looked at the house. One last, lingering glance. Do they know? He asked. Not yet. Want me to tell them? I shook my head. No. Let the silence tell them this time. Because sometimes, the loudest message is the one you don't send. And I wanted them to sit in it. To feel what it's like when the one who always showed up finally walks away. The day I handed over the keys, the house felt different. Not quieter. Not emptier. Just lighter. Mara met me at the curb with a clipboard and a gentle smile. She wasn't dressed like some executive. No heels. No briefcase. Just jeans, a flannel, and the kind of patience you earn the hard way. You ready? She asked. I nodded. We walked through the house together one last time. She didn't rush it. Let me take it in. Let me say goodbye. I paused in the hallway where Dad's tool rack used to hang. The holes were still in the drywall. I'd thought about patching them. I left them. In the kitchen, she ran her hand along the new counters. This was all you? Every screw. She smiled. You did good. We stood in the living room, sunlight cutting across the floor like it used to on Saturday mornings when Mom would make pancakes, and Caleb would complain the syrup was too runny. I almost told her everything. About the betrayal, the paperwork, the lie I'd been living in. But I didn't. This wasn't a story that needed telling. It needed ending. I signed the papers, watched her tuck them into her folder. Then I took out one last thing, a small envelope, sealed and unmarked. Can you leave this somewhere safe? I asked. She looked at me, curious. For the next family? I nodded. They'll know when to open it. She took it without pressing. Some people just get it. By the time I stepped off the porch, the air had shifted. Not just outside, but inside me. I got in the truck, turned the key, and pulled away without looking back. The phone didn't ring. No calls. No texts. Not from Caleb. Not from Mom. Just silence. And for the first time in years, it didn't feel like punishment. It felt like peace. I drove until the roads got quieter, the traffic faded, and the sky opened wide like it had been waiting for me. And somewhere between what I left behind and what came next, I realized something. Closure isn't a conversation. It's a choice. And that house, that story, it doesn't own me anymore.